Good day. It's Tuesday afternoon. I've been doing some tomato cares. Some of these need a higher bamboo. I've been mulling doing a frame, but I'm actually, no pun intended, not in the frame of mind to do a frame at the moment. And some of them seem to be sort of sticking on their growth. Those like in the middle there, which is fine. I mean, if I come over here, I'll be harvesting some of these. You can see there's, oh no, there's one truss there being attacked already. Lower truss, there's 5 trusses there. I need to harvest, which means I'm going to harvest these as well here. And I think I'm going to be harvesting these, which even though they're green, are beginning to split. So I'd rather harvest them. I'm not sure if you can see that with all the weeds in there, but you can see those, I think, are black crim and are beginning to split. So I'd rather harvest them. No, they're not black crim. They're the yellow Isle of Wight. Bloody hell, the yellow Isle of Wight I did last year weren't that big. But anyway, clearly I need to harvest because I think we're getting some magpies in here. There's quite a few fruit, you can see, on each of them. So yeah, we're getting lots of fruit, but also lots of weed in there. Yes, last week I was intending to weed these beds, but it just didn't happen because of other occurrences. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to carry on with some tomato cares. But first off, let me show you something else. I had a bit of a Bung-It-In day yesterday. We had 6 chili peppers left over from the gate sale that somebody was going to buy and then never did, and they just ended up being looked after by me, so I bunged those in. And all of these tomatoes, these are all from side shoots. These are all cuttings I took from side shoots. Most of them were well, I think about half of them were rooted in water. Can't tell you which ones because I don't know. And half of them with rooting powder direct into pots. But yeah, I had a Bung-It-In day yesterday. So let me just take you back and I'll talk you through what happened. As I said, I had some chili peppers, which I don't grow because of my Barrett's esophagus, available from the gate sale, and somebody wanted to buy them, but then they didn't buy them. They went and got them from a garden centre. So I was left with 6. So I decided to put those in. These are all tomatoes, which, as again I've said, I took as cuttings from side shoots. Some went into water, some went into rooting powder, and then into the pots that you see. All the ones that were rooted in water then eventually went into pots, so I don't know which is which. Starting to put in the chili peppers. There are chilies developing on some of these. They could have gone in ages ago, but they didn't. I'm not going to beat myself up. I'm doing this, and at this point I realise there are 3 types of chili peppers. I think there's 3 of one, there's 2 of another, and there's 1 of another. And I sort of think, oh well, let's try and organise them because, you know, why not? But really, I'm when it comes to labelling and things like that, I really seem to fail year on year. I'm not quite sure why, but I do. And I sort of don't know what my tomatoes are, and you know, blah blah blah. Anyway, those are the chilies going in. They a hole, as you've seen me do before, like I'm doing now for the tomatoes. The soil here is really good, so that's nice. Tapping it out of the pot. Relatively decent root system. These are quite young plants, you know, they're less than I would say a month old, maybe 3 weeks old. Taking side shoots off this one, tapping it out again, and then it will go in just like the others have. And as you can see, it's quite breezy, it's quite cloudy, the light is changing quite a lot. Really firming these in, and I'm just going to leave them like this so that they look really sort of spindly, but I'm going to leave them like this for a couple of days so that the wind can get to them and it will strengthen them. And of course, as with everything, a really good water. You might be able to see there's a bit of water springing out the top there. That's annoying me. It means the plastic clip at the front, the rose bit, is not, the actual rose, the holy bit is not clipped onto the back of the rose. But yeah, I'll do that. So all of this, well, not all of it has been watered, but it was all watered, and obviously watered again several minutes later. Well, 20 minutes, 30 minutes later, something like that. And as I say, I'm just going to leave them unstaked for a couple of days to strengthen in the wind. That's tomato cares done for another week, or maybe another week. Looking at them, I think there are some others that could benefit from having a longer cane. So I will most probably be doing that and tying those in. In doing the tomato cares that I've just done now, i.e. between me putting the stakes in and tying them in and going through them all, taking side shoots off, I did notice that some of the fruit trusses are developing shoots, like side shoots, which does actually happen on heritage varieties. F1 varieties and newer varieties, that type of trait has been bred out usually, but in heritage ones it is there. And what I did is I just went in with my fingernails and took the shoot that was growing from the fruit truss out, because you want the energy going into developing the fruit, not developing further plant. So yeah, I did that. And I can believe, I was going to say I can't believe a magpie has got to that Roma fruit truss, but actually I can believe it, because it's happened every single year here for the past 3 years, 4 years, apart from 1 year where we had no tomatoes because of the B word. I did think yesterday I'm going to harvest that truss. No, I'll leave it for another day and I'll harvest it tomorrow. I wish I hadn't. And of course I won't be eating that tomato. That tomato will go into our compost bin because it's been pecked by a bird, well, I think a magpie, and you don't know what's on that bird's beak, you know, so you don't know how that whole fruit might now be infected with something that we don't really want to transfer to humans. You know, we've seen what happens when that occurs before. So yeah, I'm hoping, oh spider, I'm going to harvest a few more of those trusses and take them home and let them ripen at home. I also am looking at the Isle of Wight yellow, and they're not really what I expected. You know, maybe it was an F1 variety that the Isle of Wight Tomato Company were growing, but they're bigger than we had last year when I saved the seed from some that was sent to us by a subscriber from the Isle of Wight Tomato Company. So yeah, anyway, I'm going to harvest some of those, and I'm also going to let them ripen at home too. Just wait for a little bit of blush, and then hopefully the whole thing should ripen at home. That also means that the energy can go into forming new fruit further up the plant into new trusses. So yeah, I was down here yesterday, as I say, doing the Bung-It-In session over there, and I also helped bring a table and some chairs that weren't wanted by one of our plot holders at home. So I brought the table and some chairs to be used communally, and I also took 2 chairs for myself, which I brought to the plot today. So I'm going to put those into one of our sheds at the top, most probably the 1940 shed, and make sure that it is dry, and then I'll put a bit of preservative on it in a week or so. So doing that. Then coming back to Big Ginge, sadly Big Ginge didn't make it. I'm absolutely gutted, not surprisingly. He was such a wonderful soul to have around, and I won't go through the ins and outs of it all because it was quite distressing. But I think most of you, if you've read my blog or watched last week's Week at the Plot, you will know that his owner was found. We've now, through another person who has lost a cat, i.e. it's gone missing, we've got in touch with the owner, and there's been cards exchanged, and he was so grateful to know that at the end of Big Ginge's life, he was surrounded by an awful lot of love and warmth and cuddles. You know, it's really comforting to know that. It seems as though Big Ginge had a traumatic incident, which is why he couldn't move, i.e. maybe a car. But the astonishing thing really is, in that state, how did he magically appear on my plot? Because, you know, he was here, and it felt as though he was here because he knew he would get help here. So yeah, there we are. It turns out that as well as having to have big surgery, they found out before the surgery that he also had a heart murmur, so wouldn't have survived the surgery. So, you know, it's very, very, very sad. And we've been in contact, as I say, with the owner, and I sent the owner a card, put a card through their door. There was a mix up over the house number, but they did get the card, and we got a lovely card back thanking myself and the two other people and a few other people who were involved in taking Big Ginge to where he needed to go to. And also, look, sweetie, he's bought us several cacti as a thank you. So this cacti will always remind me of Big Ginge. Bless him. Such a beauty, as most cats are, you know. But yeah, you know, these things happen. It's a tragedy when they do happen, but they do happen. And yeah, it's nice to have a card from the owner, know a bit more about Big Ginge, who was actually called Ginger. You know, I called him Big Ginge because that's what I named him. Didn't know where he'd come from, you know, so I called him Big Ginge, and his name was Ginger. So yeah, lovely to have that cactus to remind several of us of Big Ginge, which is really lovely. And I do, you know, I do recommend, if it's at all possible, if you have children, do have pets, because generally, I'm not saying always, generally I find people who have had pets, they usually have a lot of empathy. I'm not saying, you know, people who don't have pets don't. I've just noticed that generally that is the case. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just barking up the wrong tree, meowing up the wrong post. Maybe I'm doing that. Anyway, look, I'm going to go now because this is already trundling on. It's sort of two segments in one, I suppose, because of what I did yesterday. But anyway, I thank you all for your comments about Big Ginge last week. Really, really appreciated. And yeah, thank you. I will see you again very soon for a further segment of Week at the Plot. See you then. Bye. Good day. It's Wednesday afternoon, and hopefully you can see that this tomato bed is quite a lot less weedy than it was yesterday. This side, the weeds were really, or the roots were really quite embedded, and it's interesting because I've noticed that this side compared to this side, there's been more weeds generally this side. I just don't mean with the tomatoes being in, I mean sort of generally over the last couple of years. But yeah, hopefully you can see fruits coming there. I have noticed that there's quite a few trusses where there's no pollination. So if we come here, you can see this truss, no pollination there. And then if we come over here, there's certainly been poor pollination here. Where's no pollination? Again, I've seen quite a few. No pollination here. And generally, I think where we've got no pollination, it's like here, poor pollination here. Where we've got no fruit growing is at the time and place when we had really hot weather, and tomatoes, the pollen doesn't form well over, I think it's about 26 or 27 degrees. And certainly I think the areas where we've got really poor pollination in trusses, it's generally the second truss. Here you can see again, maybe it coincides with the heat waves that we've had. So it is a little bit cooler now, and I'm hoping for better pollination in the next trusses. But you know what, we've got a decent harvest already hanging from these tomatoes. I just need to make sure I get the harvest time right, because if I leave them to ripen too much, it's clear that sort of magpies get in there and peck them. As I said yesterday, we've seen that over the years. Anyway, I've been weeding. That's what I've been doing today. And I've also done the courgette bed, but I was losing energy, especially on this side here. So I'll carry on with that another day. Oh, look at our cardoons. Oh, look, can you see that honeybee in there? They do love the cardoons. There's another one going onto that one over there. It's it's very pleasant this afternoon, actually. Feels quite cool, but it's quite pleasant. And I'm just getting on and doing things. Been deadheading things, and also I've harvested our first beetroot, D. Chioggia beetroot. So that's rather nice. We'll be having those this evening, most probably as a salad. But yeah, happy to have weeded, well, weeded as best I can today, the tomato bed. Because of course with the weeds in there, those weeds are taking up some of the moisture in the watering that we're putting down. So we're watering the weeds as well as watering the plant, and the weeds are taking up moisture, and we want the lateral roots of the tomatoes to take up that moisture rather than the weeds. Anyway, I've got on and done that job. I'll most probably give it another go in a few days, particularly on the left hand side. Right, I'm going to leave it there. See you very soon. Bye. Good day. It's Friday afternoon and I've been continuing with the theme of weeding. So I've weeded this bed. You can still see there are some weeds in there, smaller weeds. There's also a mallow in there. I'm not sure if you can see it. Well, if I come over here you'll be able to see it. There's a mallow there and I'm going to move that. And I've continued weeding in this bed, and I've also spotted that there's, oh sorry, just kicked the tripod, there's another fruit forming there. So we do have various fruits forming, not huge. In fact, I'm going to ask a fellow plotter if I can put a bit of footage in here, because this plant here has got one fruit on it and is about 2 meters, almost 2 meters long. On his plot he's got 3 plants in that I gave him, and they are covering an entire area. And Vivi, the Uchiki curry I gave her, is absolutely going great guns and is, I think, about 3 meters one way and 4 meters another, or something like that. But it just goes to show, you know, soil and obviously talent. But I've got a feeling, you know, when we put plants into this bed, and sometimes this bed here, in fact actually all of these beds this side, they sometimes go yellow for about 3 or 4 weeks, and I'm really wondering whether there's residual weed killer in any of these from when we filled up at the Ealing riding stables with their compost. And interestingly, coming over here where our cheeky prints are, and they, you may remember, have been sown really late. I mean, like 2 months later than normal. Most of them are going for it. This one on the edge here is a bit tardy, but all the others you can see are going for it. And this bed, before they went in, this was topped off with horse manure from the same stables, and I have to say hardly any weeds have grown on the surface of this bed. I've weeded it a few times, haven't I? Weeded it, I think, before I put everything down, and then I gave it a really good weed, but I don't feel a lot has grown on this bed, i.e. weed seeds, since this compost went down. I don't know, it's making me mull. Anyway, I've got deadheading to do, I've got tomatoes to pick. You can now most probably see that these are Amish paste. These are beginning, sorry if I put it in the middle, these are beginning to take on colour. Oh, I've got a huge pepper in there, have you seen that? Look, huge pepper, yay! Not grown from my own seed. These over here, not sure what variety they are, but I don't know, I've got such a mix of varieties. But if we look over there, you can most probably see that all of those yellow Isle of Wights are beginning to colour up. Let me go over that side. I'm now going to avoid this marjoram because there are quite a few honeybees on this marjoram, thankfully. So these 4 plants down the right hand side, they are all Isle of Wight yellow, so they're from seeds I saved from a really lovely yellow tomato that we received in a whole tray of tomatoes from the Isle of Wight Tomato Company. And the tomato was so lovely, I took seeds from it, but these are clearly taking on more colour than yellow. They're taking on red as well. So maybe they were an F1 variety or an F2 and they're not actually coming true, which really would be quite likely. Still weeding to do in this bed, following me weeding it yesterday or the day before, can't remember which, but I'll get on with that maybe tomorrow. It really feels like another discombobulated week this week. It really does and has. I think all the the emotions that came up with Big Ginge, and also it's I don't hold to anniversaries or anything. I mean, it was my birthday this week. Richard and I don't really do birthdays, so it's very nice to have many birthday wishes on Planet Vegetaria, so thank you for that. But yeah, we don't really hold to anniversaries. So it was Dad's it was this year, the 22nd was the 9th year since Dad died, and somebody else's mum died this week, and I don't know, there's just been an awful lot of head stuff this week, and I felt a little out of sorts and a little discombobulated. So I'm so pleased to have got the work done that I have this week. The chard is looking really good at the moment, so I'm really pleased that that's in and that's growing. The Bung-It-In day that I had with the tomatoes and also with those chili peppers, they're all doing okay. They do need some staking up, and I will do that over this weekend. The courgettes are going into a little of a lull period. We've got one growing at the moment, but two in fact that are forming courgette. Sorry, we've got two courgettes that are forming. All the other plants seem to have gone into a little bit of a lull, but hopefully they will get going pretty soon because we need them for recipes. Richard did an amazing recipe, scarpaccia today. Gosh, that was fantastic, really was. What else? The lettuce are growing really well. I mean, there are things that are doing well for us this year, and I'm pleased that my head, despite all the challenges and all the horror that is going on around the world, and all the hate between individuals and governments and groups of people, which I just can't understand. I mean, I just don't understand it. And the complete impotency to do anything about that. It's really sort of quite got to me this week. So I'm glad that I've had the plot that can give me some mental balance with doing things. So, I think when your plants aren't doing as you expected, or something isn't fruiting, and then you see the news that we see on a daily basis, it sort of puts things into perspective. So yeah, I've enjoyed my weeding this week. I really have. There's going to be more to do over the weekend, but yeah, I've enjoyed my weeding this week. I've enjoyed this week, so that's good. This week on the plot, and going to Kew, of course, has been lovely, and Richard's food has been fabulous as well, as mine is as well, of course. Anyway, I did do a fantastic courgette and lentil bake last night. It was really, really lovely, and I'll be typing up that recipe over the weekend, hopefully. So maybe by the time this is up on YouTube, I'll have a link to that as well. Anyway, look, it's Friday afternoon, just gone 5 o'clock. I've spent half an hour chatting to somebody. They wanted help with their apple tree, so I've gone and told them what needs to be done. There was also a few other questions other people had. So yeah, and I also, just to finish off, the growth on the, I mentioned it, the other uchiki curry, the 3 uchiki curry. I went down there and took some footage on a fellow plot holder. These are 3 uchiki curry that I gave them.
same plants, sort of from the same sowing as when I did mine. They are huge, absolutely huge. I mean, really are. It does make me laugh. It really does. But his soil is amazing. It really is. He's been managing his soil so well for decades. And in fact, he was the person that used to manage the compost that we got from Hamwell Zoo. That was amazing compost, rather than the horse manure compost that I still have questions about. But anyway, waffling. Courgette waffles, do they work? I don't know. Right, I am going to go. Whatever is happening in your garden, your growing space, or your allotment, I hope it is helping give you mental balance too. It's, you know, we're so fortunate to have growing spaces. So many people don't have them or can't have them. You know, some people did have them and they have been bombed, you know, so we're so fortunate to have our little growing spaces. So yeah, please cherish them, and I hope they're helping with your mental well-being. What will we be doing next week? Most probably more weeding and digging up some potatoes. Let's see if we've got some potatoes to harvest, and we'll be doing a bit of sowing. Anyway, that's for next week. Stop waffling, Paul. Time to go. See you very soon. Happy growing. Bye.